All right, so we've got Dr. Larry Stoffel, the director of bands from Cal State Northridge here in Southern California. Dr. Stoffel is a good friend of mine, going a couple years back here now. At least I consider him a good friend of mine, and I hope I hope he considers me the same. But I wanted to have an interview with a music educator that maybe had a little more intimate knowledge of the Marine Corps bands than your typical music educator. And like I said, I've been friends with Dr. Stoffel for a while now, and we've had bands up there and brought him to DC with us and all sorts of things like that. So I figured it would be neat to do an interview and just kind of ask some questions to Dr. Stoffel and see how that's going. So Dr. Stoffel, super happy to have you today, and really glad that you took the time to spend some time with us. I'm sure you're super busy and attached to the computer and the webcam for your digital teaching over there at CSUN, like the rest of our country right now. Like I said, I just had a couple of questions, and we could chat a little bit and just kind of see where it goes. But I was hoping maybe you could just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what your current job is and kind of how you ended up there. Just a little background of Dr. Stoffel.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And we do have a wonderful friendship and a professional relationship. You and I, over these past few years, have made it all more clear to me what a great opportunity the Marine music program can be for aspiring professional musicians. So this is my 16th year on the faculty at Cal State Northridge as director of bands. It's a pleasure to be back here in Southern California, where I grew up. Prior to this appointment, I was teaching in Illinois at Northern Illinois University, where I was band director for 8 years. And my career actually began here in Southern California many, many years ago as a high school music teacher with band, choir, and orchestra. I've been quite grateful for having mentors and professors along the way who have really not just prepared me for a career in music education and music performance, teaching at the university level, but have been mentors to me musically, as well as guiding students to find out what they want to make their careers, the goals that they have. So I've been very fortunate all along for the schools that I went to. UCLA for my bachelor's degree, Colorado for my master's degree, and Indiana for my doctorate, and among the countless number of faculty members that I had the good fortune of studying under, but in particular, Dr. Thomas Lee at UCLA, Alan McMurray at Colorado, and Ray Kramer at Indiana.
That's a crew right there. Yes,
it is.
Yeah,
the triumphant
awesome.
Trio.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, great. So I guess the first thing that I kind of want to jump into a little bit is when you were kind of coming up through your schooling, what, if any, was your experience with the military bands as a student, in high school and undergrad and, your postgraduate degrees? I'm curious about what your experience was with military music or military recruiters or anything like that.
My junior and senior years in high school, I did make contact with a couple of Marine recruiters, and they found out that I was a bassoonist in my high school band program, and they took particular interest of that. Of course, with the worldwide shortage of bassoonists that we experience. And while I was intrigued about the idea of perhaps becoming a Marine and going down that path, ultimately, I think I ended up going the university route after graduating from high school, because I also had an interest of doing not just music as a major, but also in civil engineering. And I think that's the reason why ultimately I ended up at university. Now, soon after arriving at university, I quickly set aside any ideas of being a civil engineer and dove in wholeheartedly into music as a major. But it was while I was an undergraduate at UCLA, it was my sophomore year, in fact, I remember rather vividly. For whatever reason, we actually had Les Brown, the great big band, jazz band director, come guest conduct the wind ensemble at UCLA for a concert. And I'm not sure how this all came to be, but it was quite a remarkable experience, because here was this legendary figure, one of the last great directors of the big band era, who came in and conducted a Russian symphony with the UCLA Wind Ensemble. But while he was visiting with us that particular week, when we had a Q&A session with Les Brown, I remember one of the students asking him, what's the best advice that you can give to someone who wants to make a career in being a performer? And without pausing for a moment, Les Brown's answer was, you got to look at the military. Now he's from the generation, he was from the generation surrounding World War II. And so this was a common path for musicians to go into military careers as musicians, and how many great musicians we know of to this day that went through this route during that era. But it was the first time that I ever heard someone emphatically, directly, and without hesitation saying, you have to look at the military option. He wasn't suggesting that it was the right option for everyone, but he was saying you have to look at this as one of the options to consider if this is what you plan your career goal is, what you're looking at. So it just stuck with me, because I never heard anyone speak so directly about a military career until that particular point in time. As a graduate student, when I was focusing on conducting, I think I found out about it maybe just a little bit too late, and then aged out by a particular point of joining into the conducting program. But when I was at Indiana University as a doctoral student, one of my classmates, Susan Ryder, she was a doctoral trumpet major at Indiana while we were there at the same time. And she now is in her 22nd year as a cornetist and trumpeter in the President's Own in Washington, D.C. And she's a friend of mine, and we chat from time to time. And one of those recurring questions that I have for Susan is always, when you were at school at Indiana, did you think that this would be your career? Over 20 years in the President's Own. Because I know many people, many students who might have the perception that, well, I don't see myself being part of the military. I've met many people, musicians, graduate students, music majors, members who are in the military. Yeah, at that point in my time when I was in school, it never crossed my mind to be in the military. If you had asked me that question back then, I would have said, no, I don't see myself being in the military. But then when the opportunity presented itself and these individuals inquired more deeply to find out what really a career could be, suddenly many of these students who said, no, I never thought it would happen, or never gave it consideration before, suddenly they were looking with seriousness at a military career, because they realized the incredible opportunity it can be as an aspiring professional musician.
Yeah, no, that's not, I mean, it's not surprising at all. It's cool that, Master Gunnery Sergeant Ryder and you went to school together, and that's a neat story. But yeah, I think that's kind of a tale as old as time, where many of us, hadn't really considered the military option, at least initially. And even me, like, to be honest, I remember through most of high school, and most of school altogether, if the recruiters were around, I was one of those kids that would kind of maybe walk around the long way to to avoid the table, right? And and it's not that I had any ill feelings toward the military or anything like that. I had nothing but respect for people who served in our military. My grandfather was a retired gunnery sergeant from the Marine Corps. My great grandfather was in the Navy in World War II. My great uncle was in the Army in Vietnam. So there's a lot of the men in my family had served in the military, so I had nothing but respect. But yeah, I mean, I knew I wanted to play. I knew I wanted to make music, and I wanted that to be the way I made my living. But yeah, military wasn't really kind of the first thing that popped into my mind, but I was just kind of in a mode to explore the different ways that I could make a living making music. And the Marines happened to show up, and so I asked some questions, and it's really incredible when you dig a little bit and you ask those questions. There's just so much more to uncover that you wouldn't have expected to be there, and man, they sure have made good on it for me the past 13 and some change years, and it's been a blast. But yeah, and that's really neat. I don't think we've ever talked at that at that grade of detail about
Yeah.
how, what what your process was coming up, and the times you've thought about it. That's neat.
I
So now,
figure as a recruiter, I figure you probably get an extra bonus if you're able to find a bassoonist or an oboist. Or
it's it's just bragging rights, right? The way that it works right now, anyway. Maybe it was different when you were being recruited, but or when they were attempting to recruit you, but now it's just more of bragging rights, right? Like we certainly need a certain number of people to staff our bands, just like any other professional organization would need in order to do their job. But now it's kind of just more bragging rights, because we and I might be off by one or two here. Maybe I'll edit this part out, but usually we only have I think right now the number is 6 bassoonists in the Marine Corps, in the entire Marine Corps at any given time. So it's actually kind of more bragging rights for a recruiter, because the spots don't open up very often. So if there's a spot that opens up for bassoon, and the recruiter is the one who found this talented bassoon player that the Marine bands decided to take on because of their skill. For the recruiters, it's bragging rights for sure. They're not getting any extra stripes right away, but definitely bragging rights for sure. But all right. So now, as an educator, you said you were a high school educator, and then obviously you've moved on to the university level. What has your experience been as an educator with Marine music and recruiters and just the bands? What has your experience been from the perspective of an educator?
I keep an open door policy for any of the military recruiters, any of the military musicians. If someone calls me up from one of the local branches, local recruiting is music related, and they want to come and meet students, my automatic answer is yes, you are welcome. Let's find a time so that you can come meet with our students, and so that they have more of an awareness of what professional careers might await them in any of the branches of the military. And I try to schedule it so that the visits will coincide with one of our rehearsals, so that the recruiter might have an opportunity to hear what's happening here at Cal State Northridge, so they can hear some of our performances in preparation. I know that you and many of the other fellow Marine recruiters have attended our concerts, which we're so grateful to, so that they have an idea of the caliber and the quality of student who's studying here at Northridge. One of the expected bonuses, now that we've been doing this for so many years, whenever I have someone from the military come to visit with our students, is the additional opportunities that are offered. So it's not just someone showing up from the Marines, from the Army, to tell our students about the music program, but while we're here, is there anything else that we can do for your students? I really love that approach and that mindset that all the recruiters from the military have when they come to visit. They just don't simply want to come in and tell us, become a Marine. They give a honest portrayal of what the career could be for you, and how to go about looking further into that, how to pursue the career. But also, as long as we're here, why don't we do mock auditions for your students? Why don't we have a brass quintet come in and give a noontime recital for all the students at Northridge? Why don't we have someone come in and speak to us about the non-performing opportunities that all the musicians have outside of their primary responsibilities of playing their instruments? So that there's all of these other opportunities to enrich the experience while they're visiting our campus, if it's a one-day visit or two-day visit, and that way the students get to see that these are complete holistic musicians. They're not just robotons marching down a parade field. That when we say a music career, a professional career in music for the military, that's exactly what we're saying. I'm not just a player. I'm a player and so much more. And that's what's expected of someone who's a musician in the military. There's far more opportunities that exist, and because of these visits to our campus, we're able to reveal the great opportunity that awaits someone with a military career interest.
Right. No, I mean, and that's really fun for us too. Like it's you know, we definitely try to come and offer as much as we can to the local programs. You know, be they universities or city colleges or high schools. You know, it's just another opportunity for us to perform. It's another opportunity for us to teach and mentor. I mean, most musicians that I know, they you know, they enjoy playing, but usually it's some mix between, hey, I really want to play, but I also like teaching. I like kind of educating or doing lessons or mentoring, you know, young musicians or new musicians, even if they're older musicians who are new to the music scene. And you know, that's really fun for us too. So I mean, it's always fun to kind of, you know, venture into a mutually beneficial and a mutually pleasant experience. And yeah, it's been all sorts of fun stuff. And you know, we love coming to the concerts, especially at CSUN. Dr. Stoffel, your students sound great. We thoroughly enjoy the concerts every time we get a chance to come and enjoy it. I know
Thank you.
Staff Sergeant Josh Waldy and I, or Staff Sergeant Josh Waldy, he's not in recruiting in LA anymore. He's out with the bands in North Carolina. But I talk to him every so often, and he's like, man, sometimes I wish I was back and I could, you know, just go listen to CSUN or UCLA or, you know, any of the great wind bands that are around the area in Southern California. So yeah, I mean, it's the pleasure is all ours for sure. And we really enjoy doing those things. So yeah, and you've always been super welcoming. You know, it's always interesting when we meet new folks. It's you know, you're always curious about what the reception is going to be like when you walk to a new campus or meet a new director or you know, a new faculty member. And you know, I think part of the reason why I enjoy our relationship so much, Dr. Stoffel, is that, like you said, from day one, you were super welcoming and excited to have us on campus. And you know, we've been really appreciative of that. So it's been really fun for us too, and me and all the Marines. And you know, the Marines of Recruiting Station Los Angeles. And you know, we brought the jazz orchestra up there, and those guys had a blast at CSUN. And you know, it's just been great. Um, so I know we've had definitely a few students out of Cal State Northridge end up joining the Marine Corps music program, and they're in various states of training. Some of them are already in the bands doing their thing. At least, you know, the ones that have joined since I've been the placement director here for the past few years. Have you talked to them at all? And then what's your kind of um, perspective on the experience they've been having so far, or tell us a little bit about the students that you've had that ended up joining the Marine Corps bands and what that's been like for you as an educator.
If I'm remembering and counting correctly, I think in the last 2.5 years, we've had 6 musicians from CSUN be involved with the process to one extent or another, or they're in one phase or another.
Sure.
Right now. And as the students will testify, once you get into the process, you are focused, intense, and devoted to getting yourself to that readiness. And then through the training that takes place with the basic training, the military training, the School of Music, all that intense period. I would describe of our students who've recently been through this process or going through the process or about to begin the process. There's an excitement that I see in these students because of the potential that awaits them. I think that's a good way of describing it. They're excited about the potential of what awaits them. They understand, and because you prepare them well, so there's no surprises. This is what boot camp is going to be like. This is what the military training is going to be like. This is what the School of Music experience is going to be like. But that critical, you know, that first year where they're transformed from civilians into Marines, they know this. They know what they're about to experience, and there's just an excitement and anticipation. I'm going to be a different person when I come out of this than I went into it. And they're excited about the promise of being an even better person, being a better, even better musician than they are now. And sort of that awareness. I'm about to peak as a person, as a musician, to a higher level than I've ever experienced before. it's tough, as you know from firsthand experience,
Yeah, boot
and how
camp's not
that, again,
easy.
because
Yeah,
there's no surprises. You don't want anyone to go into this with surprise. They're well prepared. This is the intensity that boot camp is going to be, and
sure.
this is what the experience is like. But they're excited. Um, they're excited to meet that challenge. Um, but it is tough. And one of the students that we had who passed the audition well, and was preparing appropriately for boot camp, unfortunately, he didn't make it all the way through boot camp. Um,
Right.
and, and there's no shame in that. Um, Not everyone makes it through. I think
Sure.
that's just one more bit of evidence about the scrutiny and the intensity and the quality of the people, the musicians who are making it into the program. It's not a fit for everyone, but as I said, we've had 6 students now, 6 musicians from our university in the past 2.5 years that are successfully now moving through. The other 5 successfully moving on their way through. I'm just so excited to see my students express, not just with their words, but with their body language when they talk about the experience of what's awaiting them, what they've been through. Just that excitement of who I'm about to become is, I never imagined that I could be this person. They're electrified about frankly, the greatness that they're about to achieve.
Yeah, and it's that's one of probably the most common questions that I get about what you just said is sort of my answer to one of the most common questions that I get. And they ask me, what's the difference between becoming a professional musician in the Marine Corps and a professional musician anywhere else? And obviously there's certain levels of all of those things that you talked about, and especially any military branch that you're talking about, right? And I would never ever speak down about another military branch. Anyone who serves our country is way more than good in my book and has nothing more than my respect, no matter what branch of service that they're in. But when I was considering what I was going to do, and what I see most young people who are considering this that end up joining the Marine Corps, they feel something different about the Marine Corps, and it's mostly like about the things you were talking about. It's character traits and body language and confidence. And our boot camp is really tough. We have the longest boot camp in the Department of Defense, and almost unarguably the toughest boot camp in the Department of Defense, right? But I'm sure some of my Army brothers would argue that with me. But it's that's the kind of folks that usually come our way, that they're looking for what life would look like on the other side of that. It's not necessarily that they're super excited about how intense the process is going to be, but some people are excited about that. But I think all of us who end up doing the Marine Corps are minimally very excited to see what we're like, what I'm going to be like when I make it through this training, and what it's going to be like on the other side. And to me, that's the biggest difference between the Marine Corps in general and really anywhere else that you go. And the cool thing for us is that, we get to take those same character traits and put it towards the passion that we love, making music. And it's just kind of the best of both worlds for a lot of us, but yeah, so I do have a question with your students that ended up joining. We talked a little bit about this last week. You said sometimes you were surprised about who ended up being interested
Oh,
in the Marine Corps bands after recruiters talked, or after I came and talked with your students. But have you noticed any like common thread or commonality between the students that ended up being really serious about trying to get into the Marine Corps bands, whether or not they, made it through recruit training or passed the auditions? The folks that were interested and really serious about it, have you noticed any sort of common thread? I mean, because the students better than I would. I just get to meet them for the audition. So I'm curious if you've noticed any commonality in the types of students that are interested in our program.
of the students that I've seen go through the program or about to enter through the program, they are focused people first and foremost. They know why they're here at the university. They came here with a specific goal in mind, and they've stayed focused of achieving that goal in the time frame that they wanted to achieve it in, to the level of achievement that they wanted to accomplish. So they're very focused driven people. Many are not necessarily the most outspoken of people, which I find interesting. They're focused, they're thoughtful, intelligent, but oftentimes they're not going to be necessarily the most outspoken or the person in the spotlight. They're matter of fact. I have a job, I'm going to get it done, whatever it might be. I have this new etude that I have to learn by the end of the week when I go into my next my next lesson for the week with my private instructor. I have X number of hours that I need to work at my part-time job in order to cover my expenses. And so I know that it's clear that they're focused and that they don't need to constantly be talking, bragging, being the center of attention. I have a job to get done for myself to be successful while I came to university, and they're doing it. And for that reason, sometimes I will, when you come up for a visit, and we have the Q&A session, I'm curious to see which students initiate you with a question.
Sure.
And sometimes there are oftentimes, I would say, there are students that perhaps because of my own ignorance, I never would have thought that student would have any interest of a military career. And yet it's clear to me, watching them ask questions to you during the session, yes, they are interested in this. They really want to find out this, to get this information now, because it's something that they're considering for themselves. I find that to be especially exciting, not just because of the tremendous honor and the achievement of being a musician in the Marines, the incredible honor that it is, as well as the musical achievement, but that perhaps they had never considered this as a career option for themselves. And now, because of the presentation that you just shared with them and the opportunity to ask questions, they're starting to realize this might be very good for me, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's funny. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. A Marine recruiter came and gave a talk in one of my classrooms growing up. And if you would have found me an hour before that presentation and asked me if I was interested in the military, I'd probably laugh at you. And then the 5 minutes afterwards, I'd be like, yeah, no, that kind of seems like something I need to find out more information about, at least curious enough to dig and get the answers and find out what it is. So no, that's really neat. Okay. So definitely you're more focused students, and not outspoken ones. Okay. I think that's an interesting insight. I'm going to start asking that question to all the educators that I keep in touch with. I want to see if there's a common thread kind of throughout the West Coast, and I'm curious to see if it's the same.
Because obviously there's not going to be the same mold or the same person. We wouldn't want that anyway in any type of career, any type of profession. We wouldn't want the cookie cutter people in the professions, the diversity of ideas and experience that enriches any enterprise. Perhaps it might be better described as, I don't need the recognition. I'm not doing this because I want to be in the spotlight. I'm doing this because I've decided that this is important for me, important for what I want to contribute to the world. What is my role going to be in society, in culture, in civilization? I know what I want to achieve. I don't need the recognition. I'm not doing it for the recognition.
Right.
Maybe that's a better way of describing this particular attribute that I do see in most of the students who have pursued the Marine program.
No, that's awesome. I mean, most of us, and we all have vastly different personalities. I tend to be a little more outgoing and boisterous for sure amongst my peers. And then we have, the folks that are a little more quiet, a little more to themselves. But the thing that all of us have in common is that we all wanted to find a way to bring our talents to bear in service of others, and service to our country, and service to humanity as much as we can. And not for the recognition. I always tell people I want to be able to put my head down on my pillow at night knowing that I've done all I can to make a positive impact in someone else's life. And you know, when I'm an old man, I've got 4 little tyrants running around my house right now. They're all little, but you know, when I'm a grandfather, I want to have good rocking chair stories. I want my grandkids to ask me, um, what have I done with my life? And I want to have something to tell them that I'm proud of. I want them to have something, a story to hear from their old man that they can be proud of. You know what I mean? And um, yeah, I think that's what most of us are looking for. And the Marine Corps made that simple for me. Simple, not easy, but simple. You know, if you make it through the process, you're getting those rocking chair stories. You know, but yeah, no, that's super interesting. Thanks for talking about that.
You know, I'm convinced that one of the common attributes that all musicians have, regardless of style, genre, level of prominence, obscurity.
Sure.
This is something I do as an amateur. This is something I do to make a living. For those of us who decide that music is going to be a significant part of our life, and especially those who choose it as a career path, by our very nature, we are giving people. You don't become a musician unless you want to share that music with other people.
Right.
As a composer, as a performer, as a recording artist, as the person who writes the contracts for that recording art, no matter how far affiliate to the
Yep.
musical career options that we have, we are by nature people who give to other human beings.
Right.
There'd be no purpose for music unless it was shared with other human beings. And that's, of course, one of the reasons why that sense of service to nation that obviously is embodied in the military transfers so readily and completely to a musician. That's the mindset of the musician. That's the heart of a musician. That's the spirit of a musician already, is to give and share and collaborate and connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't even want to expand upon that. That's well said. I definitely couldn't even make any improvement on that statement. But okay, so I was wondering if you'd be willing to tell us a little bit about the music educators workshop, the Marine Corps music educators workshop that we brought you and a few other West Coast music educators on a couple of years ago, and just tell us a little bit about it. And then, you know, after you kind of tell us about your experience, we'll talk about, you know, maybe something in more detail related to that. But I was just hoping you could tell us a little bit about your experience in getting invited to and coming out to our nation's capital to learn about the Marine Music Program.
I am forever grateful for the invitation to be a part of this workshop from a couple of years ago. It's one of those experiences that I know I will remember well into my elderly age. It was that profound of an experience for me. Now, you and we've already been interacting with each other for a couple of years, and I found myself I thought to be very well versed as far as the Marine band program and understanding how it operates, how one joins, the extent of Music Marines, but to actually go to visit Washington, D.C. and Quantico Camp just outside and actually see the operation of the Marine Music Program was it's indescribable. I'll try. I'll try to relate right now, but it really was an indescribable experience to see the operation and to meet the Marines who were there stationed, and especially the range of Marine musicians that we met over the course of those couple of days, from relatively new recruits that were soon out of boot and military and the music school, and they were in their first assignment, to those who have made a career, their entire career in the Marine Corps, so that you got to see the spectrum of what the experience would be like. Someone who was just in for 4 years and didn't re-up, but the impression, the foundation that 4-year experience had for them, or the person who's been in for 20 plus years. It was just remarkable to see the scope and the spectrum of what the music program in the United States Marine Corps entails. As music educators, we're all quite familiar with the President's Own,
Sure.
and the
Yeah.
remarkable, the premier band of the United States of America. And but to see what's going on with all the other field bands, to see what it takes to get a musician in on that first day, they step on the yellow footprints on the ground, and then the career that follows them. To see that in first person, it makes you feel proud. It makes you feel proud as a musician to see what they're doing, to see what other musicians are doing. It makes you proud as an educator to see that perhaps something that I provided for that student in some small way while they were a student at my school might have helped them to this path. It certainly makes you proud as an American to see what's happening in the United States Marine Corps in the band program and how it contributes not just to our national identity, which it certainly does, but also contributes to our nation's culture in the musical scene. How can you deny the significance of the United States Marine Band Program, knowing that it is the oldest continuously existing professional music organization in our nation's history? That is profound. That is profound. And if someone who might have been the most cynical about the idea of a career, a music career in the military, and I'm sure you know that you run across many people like this in your work, who are cynical about the very notion of it.
As you said, it's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone, but someone who's just outright almost anti-military music for whatever reason. Sure. It's not that it's not for me. It's I think it's wrong. That whole spectrum. But to witness this, you cannot deny the importance that the Marine Corps music program has provided our cultural history in the United States. And to see that in Washington, to see that in Quantico, as I said, it's just indescribable. I'll try to describe it, but it was just an awesome couple of days. Meaning I was in awe of seeing what was happening.
Yeah, no, we had a lot of fun. And maybe
yes, it was fun.
it was a lot of fun. It was fun for us. It was fun for the Marines because typically we're kind of relegated to the limitations of our own storytelling and our own vocabulary, and to have the ability to just show you what it's like, to show you and the other educators that came along. It's really fun for us because as much as we try and hone our craft of speaking accurately about who we are and what we believe in and what we do, we always feel like no matter how sharp we are or how sharp we get at it, we always kind of feel like there's still something missing until we can show it to somebody. You know what I mean? The spoken language has its limitations for sure. And I think most musicians understand that once you understand the language of music and what you can communicate through it. But it was fun for all the Marines, musicians and non-musicians who put on that workshop, just to kind of peel the curtain back of the Marine Corps a little bit and let all of you see it in person. So just to give a little more context, we flew a whole bunch of, well, not a whole bunch, we flew a few of some of the best music educators on the West Coast out to Washington, D.C. to show them the Quantico Marine Corps Band, which is one of our 10 field bands. And while we were out there, we also got the opportunity to, the educators all got to see the Quantico Marine Band perform and all the different small ensembles and marching band and a wind ensemble. And, the directors even got to go up and conduct some Sousa marches and stuff with the band. And we had some instruments ready for the directors if they wanted to sit in with us. And then we had lunch at the Chow Hall, our cafeteria. We call it a Chow Hall in the Marine Corps at Quantico, and all of the Marine musicians came and sat with the educators, and it was just an opportunity for everyone to ask each other questions. And came back and learned a little bit about instrument repair. And then that evening we went to the National Marine Corps Museum in Quantico, Virginia. That was probably one of my favorite parts. We always kind of half jokingly say that museum for Marines is kind of like Mecca. You got to make the pilgrimage at least once, But I really loved that. And a lot of the educators And that museum, that wasn't, there's a small portion dedicated to the Marine Corps bands in our program, but really our goal was to peel as much of the curtain back as we could to show you what the Marine Corps was about. And a lot of the educators really liked that museum tour. Was there anything that was kind of surprising or something that stood out to you in the tour of the Marine Corps Museum there?
Well, of course, if I might be remembering it incorrectly, but I think there were about 30 of us. It was a sizable group that was brought out, at least 20,
Yeah.
if not 30. It was a sizable group of us that came out. So, of course, we were huddling around the music exhibit, the museum, much of the time in the Sousa exhibit and the Sousa artifacts that were there. And I certainly appreciated and valued being able to see these artifacts and some stories about Sousa and the Marine Band that I wasn't even aware of. There was one particular exhibit about the religious services that are provided to Marines, especially in time of combat. And there was one particular exhibit about a Catholic priest from the Vietnam War, if I'm remembering correctly, that was just one of those stirring stories. Again, referring to the integrity of the human being that Marines aspire to be. You're not this killing machine. That you're this highly developed, articulated, enhanced human being in all aspects of what humanity is involved in. So this particular display on this Catholic priest, a Marine Catholic priest, made a great impression on me. And there was also something, and now of course it's been 2 years. I'm going to forget, so I'm going to get the terminology incorrect, but the whole notion of why the Marine Corps was created early in our nation's history, about a military unit whose primary focus was in battle to secure the passageway from the ship right off the shore to the shore itself. And that was their original primary objective, or military objective. We weren't just sailors. We were not just soldiers. That we were Marines. This transition from sea to land.
Soldiers of the sea.
Soldiers
they call
of the
us
sea.
Soldiers of the sea.
Yeah. And the whole notion of the close rank formation that Marines marched in. I know I'm forgetting the proper term, but
no, that's
why
right.
Marine? What is it? The term?
No, you're right. Yeah, in a close rank.
The close quarter, and why Marines historically march far closer to each other than the other military units, because it's a recognition of that early inspiration of what the function of the Marine Corps in early in our nation's history. I was just fascinated by that. So that's why Marines march so close to each other compared to some other military units. It's part of the legacy, their military legacy.
There is. History is such a huge part of who we are as Marines, and that's actually a very large part of the curriculum at boot camp. Most people when they hear boot camp, and it's certainly there. I'm not saying it's not there, but most people are picturing the physical stress, the physical demand. Learning how to operate different weapon systems and being out in the field and stuff like that. That's certainly there, but and the drill and the marching, all of that stuff is a huge part of what we do at recruit training. But something that I think always catches people a little off guard is how much history we're taught. Because you're not just learning about Marines, you have to know enough that you become one. And it's really easy to kind of glaze past that statement that you're becoming a Marine, but when you really dissect it, it's really profound, and you have to know who Marines have always been in order to become a Marine. So it's kind of this profound statement that I think a lot of us can tend to glaze past. Not many Marines glaze past it. We all get it, but the history is such a huge part of what we do, and many things in our uniform and in the way we march. It's got a lot of symbolism to our traditions and our histories and things like that. It's a huge part of what we learn at recruit training, and all Marines are at least a little bit history buff for sure. So awesome.
The days were so packed. I mean, we were there for 2.5 days, and it was just packed with so many activities because of what you've already mentioned, but also our visit to Sousa Hall, and the performances that we took. And there, a tour of the facilities, of the president's own facilities, was just fascinating to see in the state-of-the-art building. The Commandant's own performance on the deck as well, which was wonderful to see. I'm glad you mentioned about conducting the Quantico Band, because if you recall, I had a major mishap getting from Los Angeles out to Washington.
Yeah.
So I missed the first day, or the first part of the first day, and so I never got the chance to conduct the band. So I'm waiting for my invitation to come back and conduct the band.
We'll get you. Hey, as soon as our wind ensembles are back together, Dr. Stoffel, we'll get you down to San Diego. We got 3 bands in San Diego. We'd love to have you down. So
that's the only regret I had from the entire trip.
Yeah, man, oh man, that's true. Yeah,
I held up at LAX airport.
Hey, tale as old as time over at LAX over there,
Yes.
right? But man, oh man, no, I still owe you that. So as soon as we're kind of clear of this global pandemic and all the social distancing, we'll definitely get you back up in front of a band, either at the Depot or down at Miramar. We'd love to have you as a clinician for sure. Yeah, okay. Let's see. So after attending that trip, was there something that you were excited about to come back and tell your students, something particular, or is there anything that you would like to tell other educators, from your perspective? Because I can tell educators what I think about the Marine Corps all the time, but I get paid to do that. So I think sometimes it's more effective to hear it from a peer who's had a unique experience with the Marine Corps band. So is there anything that you were excited to share with your students, or that you're excited to share with other educators after a trip like that, or just what you learned about the Marine Corps and the Marine Corps bands?
My primary responsibility as director of bands and a professor of music at Cal State Northridge is to provide the opportunities for the music majors to be prepared to pursue the goals that they've decided for their own lives. I'm here to provide the opportunities so that they're adequately prepared to pursue the goals that they've given them to themselves. And so for the performance major, for the music education major, for the composition major, for the music therapy major, the various majors that we have within our department, as the director of bands, I want to make sure that first and foremost, that band is performing public concerts for the sharing of music in the way that we do in our culture and that our society at the highest level that we can achieve. But it's not just limited to that. That's the primary goal with our performing ensembles, but that this gives each one of the students the enriching opportunities to further explore how I might develop who I'm aspiring to be as a performer, as a composer, as a future public school music teacher. That these are all parts of the experience that over the period of time of 4 years of study, that they're developing these greater skills to make them as comprehensive a musician, as well prepared musicians when they go out and then try pursuing that professional goal that they have. This is important for us to understand as teachers, because when I was teaching high school, of course, there was still that public performance at the highest possible level that we can achieve aspect of being an ensemble director, choir, orchestra, band, whatever it might be.
Sure.
But when you're dealing with middle school students or high school students, if I'm the teacher of students of that age, then I'm not necessarily thinking much about a student of wanting them to consider making music a career. This is part of their complete education. That in addition to any other subjects that we believe and know to be essential for a comprehensive education in a public school, so that the mathematics and the sciences and English and history, all of these what we consider to be core subjects, that music is also a core subject. And it would be an incomplete education for a student to graduate from high school and not have become musically educated. Not because we expect them to become professional musicians, far from it in almost all of the students, but this again makes them a more complete human being. So if I was looking at this perhaps at the high school level, I might, in one scenario, thinking, okay, I have students who are highly successful on their instruments that might be considering music as a career, but maybe this is just something that that's important to them, but not a professional goal. Or maybe it is, but they're also interested in other type of possible career goals. Well, look at the advantage of the military, where if you come in as a musician, it's not just about being a player, that you're developing
Sure.
all sorts of other skills that could easily transfer into professional opportunities as well. I mean, just coincidentally, right now with our two concert bands here at Northridge, we're working on making virtual ensemble performances where everyone's recording their part individually and it's all spliced, synchronized together. We've seen many of these on the internet. Well, it just so happens that the engineer that we've hired to work with us is a former member of the president's own band.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But because he was a sound technician with the band program, he's now taking that experience and has turned it into his own business with two other collaborators. The three of them have put together their own company.
Yeah.
It's music related, but it's not music performance on their part. They're involved now on the technology recording production side. So the military, depending on what age your students, where they are in their development, how close they are to adulthood and pursuing their careers, the military offers multiple opportunities in regards to professional opportunity, even for the musicians. It's not just about playing the instrument.
Right. Yeah, no, I've been super blessed. You know, I'm a saxophone player in the Marine Corps bands, but I've been blessed to do this job for the past few years. And for those that don't know, I'm the Marine that does all the auditions for anyone trying to get in on the West Coast. But a huge part of that is, you know, helping the recruiters throughout the West Coast describe who we are and what we do. And you know, music's its own language, so I consider myself a translator sometimes between English and music. Between the musicians and the recruiters who are not, you know, formerly musicians. But, you know, I've been blessed my job is to go out and tell our story and communicate and get out and do public speaking and make friends and network and look for talented people to offer an opportunity for. And, you know, when I was joining the Marine Corps bands, you know, I wanted to play sax. That was my focus. I want to play saxophone. I want to become a Marine. But I don't think I would have been thinking about public speaking and networking and talent acquisition and all of these other skills that I've been blessed to learn during my time in the Marine Corps. And you know, a lot of my buddies, like you said, get into sound reinforcement and recording, and you know, they're managing the music libraries, or they're doing supply acquisition with the instruments, or instrument repair, or just so many different things. Social media marketing, you know, we've got our Marines that ensure that, you know, our message is getting put out there, especially during a time like this, because we can't do live performances. So we've got some of our musicians are focused on putting stuff out on the internet and on social media and things like that. So there's all sorts of different things that you get to learn as a result of doing this. And you know, least of which, or not least of which, is the GI Bill and the tuition assistance. You can use those benefits to study whatever you want to. My wife did 4 years as a clarinet player in the Marine Corps bands, and during her time as we call it a fire team leader and a squad leader. So as a fire team leader, you're in charge of usually 3 or 4 Marines that are under your charge, and as a squad leader, it's usually you know, between 9 and 13 that of Marines that are under your charge. And when she was doing that, she caught the bug for psychology and counseling and all of these other things. So she used her tuition assistance and GI Bill to get her bachelor's in psychology and her EDS in school psychology. And now she's a practicing school psychologist, works from home, does all of her stuff. I'm actually sitting at her desk right now that she's usually using to do all of her evaluations as a school psychologist. And it can just send you in so many different directions. You know, it's yeah. No, sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I get excited about it when other people get it. You know what I mean? So
it speaks well to the breadth of opportunities that exist. And if we just look at the music component alone, and we think about a typical Marine field band, but there's so much going on. The band itself, what we would call a concert band, but the band itself is the core of any of the field band programs. But from that offshoots many other musical opportunities. So depending on where a musician is stationed, it's not just the full band. There are chamber music opportunities. There are specialist music type of ensembles. They're throughout the branches of the military. There's chamber music, there's bluegrass music, there's rock band, there are choirs, there's string quartets, there's orchestras. The band itself is the core, but the versatility of the band is also what allows to have all of these other what don't know what your technical term is, but what I would call secondary or peripheral ensembles that
Sure.
are drawn from the core itself. It's the
Yeah.
versatility of the band. It's the importance of the band in American culture and music culture, but also the versatility that allows for all these other types of music ensembles to take place. So you can't just be a type of musician. You have to be a musician with a broad base of musical styles and performance skill.
Right. No, yeah, we take so we have 10 field bands. All 10 field bands are built similarly, pretty much the same, where we have 50 enlisted Marines and 1 officer, and all of us together make the wind ensemble. So we all come together, all 50 of us, and we're in the wind ensemble. But of those same exact musicians, we'll use those musicians to, like you said, make a rock band, a popular music group, a big band, swing band, a Latin band, a jazz combo, a brass quintet, a woodwind quintet. One time we had one of our tuba players is pretty talented at the bagpipes, and they kind of put like a Flogging Molly style band together, if you will. They had it was like kind of a hard rock with a bagpiper in it, and just pretty much anything you can put your imagination to, as long as it tells our story and gets the job done, and it's something that we can be proud of. We do it. So yeah, the versatility is a lot of fun. I guess the last question I have for you, Dr. Stoffel, is what advice do you have for those top tier talented high school kids who are better than they have any business being at music, or also music majors either at the undergraduate or graduate level, who are looking into military bands as a career? What advice do you have for them?
Wow. The advice that I would give, because of course everyone's situation is going to be unique to themselves, and in some situations radically different. So I wouldn't want to give too broad of a stroke of a recommendation, but I would say don't limit the potential opportunities that you explore at this point in your life. There's no reason to make any quick judgment or be so narrow-minded that you're not looking at other possibilities other than maybe 1 or 2 ideas what you might think a music career would entail. The breadth of opportunities, military, non-military alike, are so wide. When you think about music majors or trying to make a career in music, everyone automatically thinks, and rightfully so, of the performer, the singer, the instrumentalist. That's number one. Composers, teachers, sort of the next tier of what most people think of when they think of what kind of career options do I have in music, to ones that might be more obscure, of combining music in the medical field or music in civil engineering, some of the more esoteric combinations. There's so many possibilities of music careers, and frankly, music career paths that haven't even been invented yet. So if you're at that point when you're still considering what options are there out there for me, look at all of them. Look at all of them and find out what really each one of those career opportunities might entail for you, and if you might find a calling. As musicians, we talk about professional musicians. I like referring every now and then to vocational musicians, and meaning in the purest, strictest sense of vocation. And that is, I have a calling to do this. It's not that I want to do this to make money. I feel the calling to do this. And I think most musicians feel that calling. And wherever they end up, be it as a performer, a teacher, a therapist, a composer, whatever it might be, administrator, we're called to do that because there's something inside of us. So take the time to find out what you discover, to reveal what is the calling that I'm feeling, and identify, so it's not just a feeling, but it's an understanding of what I'm experiencing as a fledgling musician. Is there a career for me out there? Then what options do I have, and what do I find myself being called to? And if you look at it that broadly, that openly, clearly, you must look at the military option as a possibility for you.
Like you said, you have to explore all of your options, and something's going to pull, something's going to tug at your heart, and something is going to, it's going to happen. You put in the work, you turn over the rocks, you explore things. You know, and people talk about being lucky a lot. I'm not a huge buyer in that. I think that maybe a little bit of luck, but I think you either work really hard and put yourself in a position to be lucky, or you don't. You know.
You know,
So
putting
I think
yourself in the position,
right,
putting yourself in the position for the opportunity to take advantage, to explore the opportunity. We make
right,
those things happen in our lives. Yeah, they don't just happen, we make them happen. But in order to make them happen, you have to be aware of all that surrounds you, and
right.
the incredible opportunity that's waiting.
Yeah, and it's there right now. Like we said a couple times throughout our conversation today, you know, the Marine Corps is not for everybody, and that's not a dig. That's not meant to be any sort of connotation at all. Either way, right? It's just the truth. You know, it's just the truth. It's not meant for everybody, but you'll never know if it's for you or not unless you explore it. And everything's like that. You got to explore your options and see what's out there. Sit down with our Marine recruiters, learn a little bit about who we are as Marines, and you know, learn about our program. And if it tugs on you, then keep digging, explore a little bit, and see if maybe this is something for you. But if not, at least you don't have to wonder what if. You can check it off your list and move on to the next thing. That's what I always tell folks, right? Because it's not going to be for everybody, but you never want to have to wonder what if. You always want to be able to say, like, no, I explored that, and the path that I chose was right for me. You want to be able to have that sort of mindset moving on with your life. But Dr. Stoffel, I really appreciate you taking some time out and talking with me. And I was just wondering if you had anything else you'd like to add, or any parting thoughts to anyone that's watching the video or listening, or any parting shots at all.
Well, Staff Sergeant Keller, thank you again for the invitation to do this. Those of us who are teachers, regardless of the level, again, we're in the business of trying to help facilitate students, give them the opportunities so that they can achieve the goals that they've set out for themselves. And clearly, the military music option could be the right fit for many musicians, aspiring musicians.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Stoffel. I'm going to get back to my little crew down here, and you know, get some time with my family. And let's talk soon. I'm super excited to be meeting with some of your students next week. That'll be super fun, and I'm sure I'll be on the phone with you here shortly. But once again, thank you so much, Dr. Stoffel, and appreciate your time.
Thank you.